But we've got a great competition here in Fayetteville as well. Dwight, Dan?
Pole vault always exciting. A different group of athletes, that's for certain. I kind of lump them in with surfers and volleyball players. It's a cult. But and don't try traveling with these guys with those darn poles. That's a whole new thing, a whole pain in the neck thing, especially back in the day traveling to Europe. But the level on the men's side in the SEC is a little bit down this year. 2 jumpers, vaulters in the competition have qualified for the NCAA, and everyone's conferences this week. So it may be that the level will go up. The cutoff right now is 17.6½, and there's a 17.8½, and an 18-foot 1/2 inch vaulter in this conference. So they are going to be looking very closely to see what happens elsewhere in the country, as well as hoping to improve their marks so that they make sure they maintain that level and hopefully be back here in 2 weeks. So the bar is at 16 feet 3/4 of an inch, 4 meters 90. That's Peyton Weissman of Ole Miss. Nothing else going on in the arena per COVID. So it really gives us an opportunity to focus on the field events. We had the high jumps yesterday, and the pole vault and a little triple jump today.
Always a long 3 days when these individual event athletes don't compete until the final day of the championships. They've just been trying to get their workouts in. Certainly under COVID protocols, it's spending a lot of time in the hotel away from other people, and they finally get their chance here on the final day of competition.
So Ryan Leip of Alabama originally was not going to be contesting this height, but must have changed his mind and comes in at 16 feet 3/4 successfully. There's always a conundrum in the high jump and the pole vault as well, and I think it's more of an issue in the pole vault as to, how much time are you willing to wait between your last warm-up vault and your first competitive warm-up vault, or excuse me, competitive vault. And sometimes you look at it and say, gee, it might take a while to get to the next height, so why don't I just start earlier and just call it an extra warm-up jump? And that works just fine as long as you don't miss, because that, of course, works against you. And then the continuity is better from your warm-ups to the competition. And that's why it's an issue when you get into the higher levels like the NCAA and open competition, where the bars always start higher. I love starting at 2 meters 10, 6'10 3/4. That's my favorite starting height. It's a nice extra warm-up jump. But as the event got better and better, the starting heights just kept going higher and higher, and the comfort level had to change.
That was when I always hit my best individual performances. I would go to an invitational like the Modesto Relays or Mount Sac Relays, and the opening bar would be 5 meters in the vault. Even though I would only get a couple of bars, I was competing at a very high level and had to make that adjustment. Then from coming in at 460 or 480, now I'm coming in at 16.4 and 16.7. But I think it made me a better jumper overall.
One of our statisticians, Rich Benoit, just reminded me that they've cut the vaulters down to 30 seconds of prep time from the time the bar is set on the standard their name is called. When I was first competing in the 70s, it was 2 minutes for us. Then they cut it to 90 seconds, which was a big adjustment for me. And I retired before they cut it to a minute, which would have been a disaster for me. I worked on it in practice. I never got comfortable with it. I never felt comfortable with it. And I'm glad that I was retired by the time they went down to a minute. Now these guys, just 30 seconds from the time the bar is on the standards and name is called. And frankly, that makes a lot more sense indoors, where the conditions are much more controlled. It's not cold, it's not hot, there's no wind blowing in either direction. But outdoors, that's rough, because if the wind is gusting and you get a headwind much of the time and you're up, you got to go whether you like it or not, and maybe you've got the wrong pole in your hand.
That's kind of the fun part about track and field as well, though, battling the elements and being able to perform when the conditions aren't optimal. Most college tracks, and especially world-class tracks, have situated their pole vault so that they get the majority of the good wins. But there are some competitions. I remember jumping in Eugene, Oregon, rain, wind in your face, because you go in both directions there. Got a lot of people jumping, but I think because I trained in Pullman, Washington, I always had a left to right wind. It gave me a little bit of an advantage when the conditions were good.
Matthew Asplund is a freshman at Auburn, coming into the competition here. Yeah, you guys from Washington State were tough in tough conditions. I remember my cousin, Doug Nordquist. He had no aversion whatsoever to jumping in horizontal rain and cold. It didn't even bother him. Brent Harkin was the same way. The high jumpers from Washington State just didn't let conditions affect them, and I always admired that. I could never emulate it, but I admired them. I was a spoiled Southern California
We
kid.
took on the personality of the guy that coached us, though.
Well, true.
Rick Sloan is just a down and dirty kind of guy. He used to give me a hard time. You know what we jumped in? We had leather spikes and leather shoes with permanent spikes. And all right.
Yeah, he did go to UCLA, so he hasn't got much to complain about.
He was attempting world records in practice when they first came out with the poles that would bend.
Jacob Spotswood of Alabama employing the helmet. Toby Stevenson popularized that back in the early part of the century. Silver medalist at the Olympic Games in Athens was Toby. I nicknamed him Crash. It stuck. He liked it.
Spent some time at Kentucky, and now a very successful coach at the University of Washington.
Olivia Gruber is one of his students. He's been very successful. When I first saw him when he was at Stanford, I think maybe freshman, at the oldest a sophomore, and I just thought he was just maybe a dorky computer programmer kid that was vaulting. And then I met him. Realized he was from Texas, and he was not a dorky computer programmer guy.
Well, I always say it takes a little bit of a export mentality to do the pole vault, and I would love to see an event like the pole vault, end up in the X Games. It's I'm not sure how you could make it any more dangerous, except string some barbed wire up there or something, but these guys are fearless, and even outside of pole vaulting. A number of them, ski, snowboard, skateboard, that sort of thing. Nick Highsong was a big skateboarder. He was a 2000 Olympic champion in the pole vault and multiple Pac-12, Pac-10 champion in the vault.
This is Kenny Odenet, sophomore at LSU, over successfully on his first attempt at 16 feet 3/4 of an inch, 4 meters 90.
You look at that LSU kid. How about, you look at the record book and you go, well, Mondo Duplantis kind of ruined that for us, didn't he?
Yeah, we got him for 1 year, and he attempted the collegiate record in almost every meet indoors and outdoors, and got to the final meet, the NCAAs in Austin 2 years ago, and lost to a very good vaulter who eventually went on to break his record. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Casey Lightfoot is just killing it. I don't know how you keep that kid in school after this year.
And Mondo seems to have gone on to better things.
Yeah, as we knew he would.
I mean, just phenomenal heights.
Lincoln Young with a huge clearance there at 16 feet 3/4 to open the competition. His teammate, Joseph Jardine. And you wonder if maybe these guys were recruited by Toby. The younger guys, obviously not, but the older guys at Kentucky, and then he decided he needed to relocate.
Well, Chris Grimes is an outstanding vault coach. That's his specialty. He's been at Kentucky a couple of years. These could be Toby recruits, but Chris Grimes also coached the vault at Washington State when I was there under Rick Sloan. Good plant there.
Really good. I've seen a couple of very good technical executions here.
Well, we talk about records, Mondo kind of ruining it for the LSU athletes. Think about this facility records. You get professional athletes into this facility every couple of weeks, and Grant Holloway comes here. At the facility record would go down and nobody would ever have a chance to break it.
Well, Mondo broke his dad's school record, which was no stiff record. It was 19 feet a quarter inch, so he had to do some vaulting to. But that's an opening height for Mondo now. You know, he jumped higher than that in high school. And I'm sure he has inspired a whole raft, a whole generation of vaulters, having watched him. It's amazing how it's really a family event. That you think of the families that have done it: the Currans, the Richardses, the Duplanises,
Voles, right?
Yeah, they have.
Mead and Deacon.
Yeah, they have facilities on their property. They've been vaulting since they were little tiny kids. Mondo certainly, because Greg put a pit and standards and a bar and the whole runway and the whole deal right on the property. Ooh, that's way under.
And you can look at a sport like skateboarding. Tony Hawk is a guy who builds a half pipe in his backyard, and no doubt that his kids are going to be skateboarders as well. And I think the same happens in the pole vault. Chelsea Johnson, and certainly there in Northern California, Jan Johnson puts on camps, clinics, competitions throughout the entire year. You want to get good over the weekend, go see Jan Johnson.
Yeah, her dad Jan was on the team with me in Munich, and he was one of the first guys and way out in front of having individual event camps. He was doing pole vault camps 20 years before everybody else. And let's face it, in this last year, athletes have been hungry for an opportunity to practice. Pole vault and high jump. Athletes, they want to vault and they want to jump, whether there's competition or not.
Well, and even somebody like Sandy Morris, she, finds a location, puts in a portable runway to create her own competitions, and she's really taken ownership of her career in that sense.
Yeah, her dad built her a nice one this past year. With the pandemic, it sort of became a cottage industry.
It's Brock Meyer of LSU, second attempts now at 16 feet 3/4. He bails out of that one. Yeah, there were limited Diamond League events in Europe last summer where they really restricted what events were being held, and the men's and women's pole vault had a few opportunities, but nothing like what they were used to.
This is a freshman from Auburn, Asplin. First attempt miss at 490. There's a better plant for him.
Nice adjustments on the second attempt.
Dan, for everybody who doesn't know all the nuances, what makes for a good plant?
Nice and tall at takeoff, and that he's holding the top of the pole with his right hand. He gets it up, and he doesn't let the pole jerk him back. He controls the path of the pole, and the whole idea is to move the pole to vertical. We'll see these athletes that do it well. They leave the ground. When a guy looks like he gets jerked, that means the plant was under. See, there was a good-looking plant. Didn't get that top hand too far behind his head. I did let that top hand get far behind my head, but I had a lot of speed, and I was able to recover after the pole hit the back of the box.
I just look for the top hand to be stiff and straight and high and right over the plant foot. That's
right.
What I'm looking for. And the guys that let that arm collapse or they get under, that's when you get into trouble. That's when you're sitting up there 18 feet in the air right over the box.
And what's interesting about vaulter-only guys, single event guys, they usually learn on poles that are a little bit smaller. They get comfortable on 15.6, 15.8 poles, and then they have to move up to 490s, and you need a 490 pole to be jumping at 4 meters 90, 5 meters 510. But when you get real comfortable with a 15-8, now you've got a lot of you have to create a lot of flyaway. You have to do things very, very well. We'll see Marcus Belangi come in here, and he'll sail over this. And it's not because he's a technical better vaulter. He's just bigger, a little bit stronger, and he has gigantic pulls in his bag. And it's just, it's just grip high and let it fly. And that was kind of my philosophy on it as well. I was not a technician. I didn't have enough time to get really technically sound. I just needed to get my reps in 2 times a week and make some bars, and I did that with big bars. I never jumped on poles that were under 4 meters 90, just over 16 feet. Dominic Johnson, same way, 5-meter poles. It's like, goodness.
Way under on that one.
There you go. Yeah, you can see that.
And the pole appeared that it was just not stiff enough for him. It's too light a pole for that particular attempt or with that speed.
But the guy who had the biggest poles in his bag that I ever knew about was Lawrence Johnson.
Yeah, well, that's a big boy. He was fast.
Yep.
He was tall. He had the levers. I mean, it's so much of an advantage in both the vault and the high jump to be tall. I mean, it's math. It's physics. And Lojo, he was a heck of an athlete. Pretty good piano player, too.
SEC champion, NCAA champion. Bill Webb did a great job with him at Tennessee.
Silver medalist in Sydney. 2 Olympics in a row. Americans went 1-2 in the vault. Hysong and Johnson in Sydney, and Mack and Stevenson in Athens.
It really does offer, though, a unique combination of strength and speed among athletes to be good at this.
Yeah, they're athletes. They're not gymnasts. And on the women's side, that's becoming really now the norm. It started out, it was all gymnasts back 20 years ago when the event was first being contested in the World Championships and Olympics. But now there really are athletes.
Well, and Rhett's coach over there, Mario Satania, he was a really good vaulter. Might have even been a 540 guy, almost an 18-footer.
All right, third and final attempt at this height, so they will raise the bar, and we will come back with more coverage of the pole vaulter at the SEC Championships.
See Indoor Track and Field Championships, Randall Tyson Track Center, John Anderson, Dwight Stones, Dan O'Brien, as we're giving you exclusive coverage of the pole vault. And I will say this, you were talking about the elements, and I look at this big empty stadium because you can't have fans. And so often, and you guys were in this World and Olympic competition, and you try to discount that crowd so you don't get overwhelmed. What do you think it's like to compete with just the opposite of that, going here?
So I want to talk about that in a minute, but I want to talk about this guy. Fun fact, Sean Clark, the child of Kathy Johnson, the gymnast from the 1984 games, and Brian Clark, who was a soap star on General Hospital. He competed for Penn, finished his studies, went down to Texas A&M, still had another year of eligibility, so he's vaulting as a senior for the Aggies. He's been to the NCAA championships. I believe he was a second-team All-American at Penn, and just loves to vault and had some eligibility, so he said, I'm going to go where it's warm and jump on a good team. So that is Sean Clark. Okay, so back to the elements. Go ahead, Dan. You've done this event. I haven't.
Well, I certainly have done this event, but as a multi-event athlete, I know what it's like to compete in front of nobody. All right, and I think Petros and I kind of joked about it, the coach at Georgia, and he said, the crowd in this, no crowd in the stadium doesn't bother us because we have been in the multis for such a long time. When we show up at a championship at 9 a.m., usually, that crowd's not showing up till 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So, I don't think these athletes are really sweating it. This is like a practice in the fact that they get to talk to their coaches, but it counts.
And frankly, once you're in the zone and doing what you do, you really just can't be bothered by or be affected by what's going on. I mean, I did this event and did the sport to perform. So I did like having a crowd, and I liked that people were watching me or watching my event, but mostly me. And so this would have bugged me on a certain level, but the competition itself is so much more important, and the reason why you train that you go, listen, the crowds will be back. This will soon be over, and it's time to compete.
Yeah, sure. But you just think some of those people, you see jumpers all the time, right? They get the clap started, or they try to generate some energy that they use in there. And it sometimes you just like it's eerily silent in here.
Anna Hall tried that yesterday on her third attempt at her last height. She started clapping. I went, okay, well, hopefully people from other teams will join in.
But to that point, right, like you were sitting there and you said, I can hear her foot plan, which is something you don't normally get, right? That sense that you can get that auditory feedback just like that.
Yeah, this is going to be sort of the lost year and a half in the calendar for lots and lots of things, aside from just track and field competition at the collegiate level. And everybody's going to be very happy to see it go. I'm still wondering if the Olympics will actually happen. I'm hopeful that they will, because I feel so badly for the athletes who are legitimate contenders or those who have something to prove from the last ones. This is so out of your control. But it's starting to look right now like they're going forward. Olympic trials are happening. Not that Olympic trials didn't happen in 1982. I mean, we knew we weren't going. Olympic trials happened anyway. But I'm hopeful that they can figure it out, a way to make it happen.
Well, I will say, though, that
there you go. Once in a while that happens.
It's a friendly bounce. I did save a lot of money by not going in 2021. My wife had a 3-week post-Olympic extravaganza through the country of Japan planned for us, and it would have been nice. However, it was a little spendy.
Like everything in Japan.
I believe that is a members bounce, right?
Yeah.
This is his building.
Yeah, we like those. I tell my kids all the time, I said, listen, take every clearance, but don't confuse it with it being a good jump. It probably wasn't when you hit it like that. There's Marcus Belangi, back from the heptathlon the other day. First attempt at 16.6 3/4 now.
Two days of heptathlon, 1,000 meters to finish. Yeah, you're going to feel this in your legs on day 3. Not as taxing as a decathlon, but certainly a little bit of soreness, a little bit of stiffness will then set in after he finished that last event.
James Corson of Auburn entering the competition at 5:05, 16.6 3/4.
Corson, a 5:25 guy, has been over 17 2 3/4 this season.
And an easy clearance there at 5:05.
There's something that always feels good about making that opener, whether you're in a multi or not. Just even every time I came down the runway, first attempt at my opening bar, even in an open competition, just to get one out of the way. Okay, there we go. You know, my step is fairly on. I can make adjustments from there. I can make pull adjustments from there.
You want an O on the card at your opening height.
Another decathlete. This young man was the best vaulters of all the decathletes. It's a 5:40 personal best, and that is an outstanding jump for a multi-event athlete. 5:40, 17 feet 8 inches.
Oops.
Dan, for a multi-guy, where's the best place to find points that other guys don't have? And I think of Lyndon Victor at A&M, who's a great thrower and javelin throw. You know, where can you find points there that most other guys might not have?
You get a lot of points awarded in the high jump, the pole vault, and believe it or not, and even though I hate to admit it, the 1,500 meters.
Yeah, yeah, you have to throw really far to get disc points. It's almost unfair.
Well, and it's, you know, you can beat a guy by 4 or 5 points in the shot put, and you might gain 80 points on him. But if you beat him by 4 heights in the pole vault, you'll gain 200 points.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then if you beat a guy by 10 seconds, 15 seconds in the 1500, that's big points as well.
And a miss for Kenny Odonet on his first attempt at 16 6 3/4.
I joke with Valters because if you made all your first attempts, you might have 6, 7, 8 jumps that day. But they want to be out there a little bit longer, so I think they, sometimes don't give a great effort on effort one. So they, they don't want to go through a competition, just take 8 jumps and be gone. Let's take 14, 15. Give me a little bit more time out there. And as a multi-event athlete, you don't want to waste those jumps. But it seems like Valters really kind of they're a little too relaxed on the first attempt.
That was just a timing issue off the pole. Everything else looked good before that. I was very fortunate in my career. I had great vaulters on my club team. Billy Olson, Brad Pursley, Mike Tully, guys like that who all had a different approach to the event. And I learned a lot about the event from them and watching them and talking to them. Because I presented no threat to them. They could unload everything on me because I wasn't competing against them. I mentioned Scott Huffman a while ago, and what I loved about Scott is he found a way to do things a little bit differently that kind of wowed the crowd. He did that sort of high jump straddle thing over the bar, which he claimed was he never didn't mean to do it, didn't try to do it, didn't say on this one I'm gonna do it. It was just something that would happen, and it looked so unusual. I don't know if it helped him or if it hurt him or it didn't matter, but it did bring even more eyes to the event.
And he only could do it when the bar was extremely
really high. Yeah, really high. All right, here's Sean Clark for his second attempt. This is his opening height. Successful on that one. As I mentioned, Sean is an 18+ vaulter in his early career at Penn, but he has struggled a little bit in the interim.
Oh, and you can guarantee his mother is watching and listening to every word we say.
Absolutely, and so is Brian. Hello, Kathy and Brian. Saw them at Texas Relays last year.
Hey, we got a nice
2
shot.
years ago. Excuse me, 2 years ago. We didn't go to Texas Relays. There was no Texas Relays last year.
We got a nice shout out from former SEC and NCAA champ Nate Struthers, and says the commentary for the SEC pole vault is great. He's like, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. You got a 400-meter guy though watching the pole vault.
Very
I love
nice.
that.
Very nice. And there's a successful clearance.
Another unique thing about this event that maybe you guys can help our viewers with is that, Dwight, we put the standards in the high jump there and they don't move. But here, right, you can adjust those standards back and forward.
That's correct. A great point. And that's that little signboard that you see that says 70, 75, 80, 85. They are moving the standards from 0, which would be right over the box, and then back a certain amount. There you see 70, and each vaulter will tell the judge where they want the standards to be placed, and that is all a function of how stiff the pole is that they're using, how long they think that it'll take it to get to vertical, where their body will travel to, and try to put the bar where they think it will be at the height of the apex of their vault. It would be nice to do that in the high jump, but instead we just move our run back as the bar gets higher so that we have more room to gain altitude.
There's a good looking make. And the maximum distance you can put those standards back though is 80 centimeters.
That's 80. I thought it was 90. So it's 80. Okay.
I don't know if you see a 90 up there.
I thought I saw an 85, but I could be wrong.
But I haven't competed in a while, so.
90 centimeters is almost 3 feet. I mean, it's a long way back.
Well, Well, Marcus Belangi is one of these athletes that I have identified as a guy who will compete at the next level as a professional. He's got great size, he's really strong, he's got good speed. Thought it was a nice move for him to leave Liberty University, come here to where there is a lot of multi-event action taking place. But you see, he's just a big guy, man. This guy is probably 6'4", weighs 215, 220 pounds, and takes a big pull to support a guy that large.
Okay, he's really getting wrapped up there. I remember he was a little bit limpy out of the pit on his last vault. We'll have to see if they're taping him up and expect that he will continue to compete. That makes my back and hip hurt just to watch them do that.
And they look like they have him hooked up to some kind of a TENS
stem.
unit.
Yeah. He's got some stem going on there.
It's a benefit of a long rotation, though. You know it's could be 10 or 15 minutes until you get another chance to jump. This is frustrating a little bit as a multi-event athlete because those long periods between jumps can tighten up. You get stiff real quick. You need to continue to move, and that was one of the things my coach constantly said to me: stay warm, stay loose. Every 3 or 4 minutes that would go by, he would say, get up and just give me a strider out on the track.
All right, back to Jacob Spotswood. Second attempts now at 16 6 3/4. And that's a nice looking vault there by Spotswood. Little drift off to the right off the pole, but hip height right over the crossbar. Right selection for that of poles for that height.
This is still a jumping event. A lot of people don't quite always look at it as a jumping event, but you run down the runway and you need to perform a jump. You jump off the ground here. You just don't run and let the pole bend. This is a jump at the end. And so these guys do a lot of training like a long jumper would. They do plyometric drills, double leg jumps, single leg jumps, and a lot of sprinting.
There's a clearance for a multi-eventer. That's probably going to score points. I think this is probably a point scoring height. Well, I asked my high school kids, I said, so name me another event that at the very end of the effort, you jump into the air vertically, that you don't want to go horizontally anymore. I said, well, pole vault. I said, no. I said, you continue going horizontally with your body because you have to put energy into the pole. That's what puts energy into the pole. I said, you only go vertical once the pole has bent to its, not necessarily its maximum, but the maximum that you want it to bend, and that is when you go vertical. So the high jump's the only event that at the very end, what you want is top dead center. You let Newton take care of the rest. That's another good adjustment on a second attempt for Kenny Odendet.
Four rounds of pros compete in the men's shot. Northwest major leader at personal best 65.4.
Second attempt for Lincoln Young.
Alabama, also 65.4. And Sophia third for
Got the blue Kentucky socks going. A little under on that one. Yeah, comes up short.
Well, and you can see his hesitancy about 4 strides out. That pull tip begins to drop, and I think he recognized, I'm too close. I have to back off a little bit, because if he doesn't back off, it could just rip his arms right off. But he was under a little bit just to make his step check, but that left his hip height out in front and in the wrong position. Athletes have great awareness, and they see a takeoff point day after day after day, and if you're not on it, you certainly know it. And it's tough to make those last second adjustments. What I like about the pole vault, though, it's benefiting those guys when you can make those last second adjustments, when you know where you're at halfway down your run and can make those small adjustments and make a jump work. Those are the guys who are the very successful ones.
All right, I think that's a no height for Marcus Balanji. Came in at this height and unsuccessful on 3 attempts. He looks like he has a little hitch in his giddy up. That could be a remnant of the heptathlon.
But Balanji comes in with a 490 personal best, and so this was
there you go.
Yeah, this was a great opportunity.
Just going for it.
Yeah, great opportunity for him to come out, compete the day after the multi-events, come in at a very high height. Come down the runway a few times. He does look a little tired, though, doesn't he?
Dan, how many poles did you travel with?
6 or 7, yeah. They had about 6 or 7 in the bag, and only in perfect conditions did I ever get to the last 3.
I was going to say, and 2 of them you never jumped on.
Yeah. I let Lawrence Johnson borrow one and regretted it, Just
I have a story about that in the next segment. All right, 3rd attempt for Lincoln Young, who had the height on the last vault, but because he planted under, he came down on the bar.
But in your bag, you've got a super light pole that you can manage in any kind of a horrible headwind condition. You've got a starter pole that can get you over the first 2 bars, and then you've got your mid-range where you're running well. Coach wants to move you back a step. And it's not until you really get to the high heights and you're jumping at personal best do you bring out some of the stiffest poles in your bag. And I had 490 poles in my bag, which is just over 16 feet, but I also had 2 5-meter poles that I only jumped at when I had cleared 520 late in the decathlon. I thought, you know what, I'm jumping at 530 or 525. I'm gonna just see what I can do on a longer pole. But that only then, when I moved up to the big poles, did I have to, I was real courageous at that point.
And again, just under.
Yep.
So that will finish the vaulting at 16 6 3/4. The bar will go up, and we will step aside for a moment, return with more coverage.
Minutes from our first event on the track. That will be the men's mile, but now we're up to 16:10 3/4 in the pole vault. Dwight?
All right, John, still about 11 vaulters left in from those who've passed to this height and others that have been competing all along. So I promised to tell a story from way back in this segment. I'm going to tell you about this. This is back in the days when if the pole went under the bar on the vault and you made the bar, it was a miss. Here's Sean Clark up for his first attempt at 16:10 3/4. Now the bar's been raised to 5 meters 15. Wait for him to vault. He was successful on his 2nd attempt clearance at the previous height, which was his opening height, transfer from Penn. And over on his first attempt. So it's the Olympics in 1968, and Bob Seagren and John Pennell are in the final, and they're both big, strong guys, fast guys, and the bar's getting up close to world record, and John Pennell has run out of poles in his bag. He's already jumped on his biggest pole, and he mushed out on it on his clearance in the previous height. And the only guy in the competition that has a pole big enough for him to move up is Bob Seagren. And as Dan can attest, vaulters let each other borrow poles all the time. It's an absolutely normal sort of practice. So John goes over to Bob and says, yeah, Bob, whatever number it was, do you have that vault, that pole in your bag? I need to borrow it. And Bob looked at John Pennell and he said, John, this is the Olympics. So Pennell jumps on the pole, the biggest pole he had. He clears the height, and the pole goes under the bar, and it negates his jump. And Pennell finishes 4th. Siegrun wins. They changed the rule right after the Olympics. It's very dangerous for the pole to go under the bar, and we've seen some YouTube video of how dangerous it can be. It's not pretty, but it's no longer a rule that it has to not go under the bar.
Does seem to go against some of the spirit that you see now. I mean, it's quite a group with a lot of camaraderie when they go, right? I recall, was it Sam Kendricks not long ago when he broke the American record, and everybody else in the competition swarmed him on the pin, right? They pig-piled him.
Yeah, it's that way in the high jump too, and it wasn't when I was competing because I didn't allow it. I was, those guys were the warm-up band. And I'll admit to that. I was a jerk. There's no question about most of my career. I'd say the second part of it, after I was in my mid-20s, it changed. But yeah, early on, yeah, they were the warm-up band, and I was the main event. And they didn't take kindly to that, and I don't blame them.
Poles are very personal, though. You don't want them dinged up, chipped. I mean, somebody actually stepped on your pole. It could damage it. It could break down the road. But I think about shot puts, discuses, and javelins. Once an implement is in a competition, anybody can use it.
Right.
But it's just a kind of a consideration that I won't just grab yours and use it without asking you. So you definitely see a lot of that in the throwing events. People not letting other people use their different implements. At high-level competition, not at the NCAA championships, everybody brings their own implement, but World Championships, Olympics, they supply a number of different implements for you to use. But it's always interesting when a javelin is flying far and somebody other than the owner picks it up and decides to throw it.
Ryan Leip with a nice-looking vault there. Clearance at 16.10 3/4. He has been flawless so far. 3 vaults, 3 clearances for the Alabama senior. Well, I think you're sending a message if you say no. I mean, there's a whole different reason. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's yours. I think that you're just sending a message. And if you can stand behind that, it's great. And if the athlete who's asking and is rebuffed doesn't react well to it, then that says a lot about them. There's a lot of gamesmanship that goes on, of course, in sport at any level, team or individual, and that's one of them. Whether when you're asked to catch a step and you say no, that's a thing. I don't think there's a lot of that anymore. I think it's a nice fraternity that we've got going on in track and field, both on the men's and women's side.
So I take a look at the men's descending order list here. The pole vault, Casey Lightfoot from Baylor. He leads the conference, 6 meters, just absolutely phenomenal. But 20th place, Sean Roth from Louisville, 5:31. And so for any of these athletes, only 2 SEC athletes are on this descending order list. Matthew Pear from Kentucky and Edamar Bastakar from Arkansas. And that's a pretty light roster for the SEC, who usually has a number of good vaulters, but 5:31 is the number. If anybody wants to go to the NCAA championships, it's a great opportunity on a great facility to get over a big personal best and add your name to this descending order list.
So they'll take 20, not 16?
Well, they have 20 listed.
Okay.
But they have...
Yeah, I think they're taking the top 16. I don't think they have cut that back for nationals this year. It's always been 16. But yeah, it gives you an idea of where you are if you're on the cusp.
Yeah, I think 535 is the number right now. And of course, the conference meets this weekend could change that, and that could go up. I think you want to jump 540 this weekend if you haven't done it, if you want to come back here in 2 weeks.
So 16th position is 535.
Dwight, since you had brought the story from 1968, not to live in the past, but hear me out. You have said you don't think there has been a bigger change in any event in the sport than the fiberglass pole.
Yeah, second is the Fosbury flop, but I think the fiberglass vaulting pole is more revolutionary than the Fosbury flop. Look what it's done to the event. mean, when you think of 1972, that was the first time that the 18-foot, or 1972, yeah. It's the first time the 18, or 5 meters 50 barrier was broken. I think Christoph Papanikolaou jumped 18 feet in Greece in 1971, maybe, I can't recall. But anyway, it's 50 years ago, right? And look at how much the event's gone up. I mean, it's 2 feet 4 inches. In
Right,
that
the
amount of time.
percentage that has gone up
Is insane.
staggering.
And the world record in the high jump in 1968, when Dick won the gold medal, the world record was 228, 7 5 3/4, and the world record then has now been in the high jump for 28 years. Has been 8 feet 1/2 inch.
Well, that last competitor to go, he's our conference leader, Matthew Pear from Kentucky. Big opener, easy first attempt make on his opening bar. You know, I'd have to put the track surfaces in there at some point as well. I mean, these track surfaces nowadays are absolutely phenomenal, and you're not just seeing them at an Olympics or a World Championship. You're seeing
Local high school track.
Oh yeah, fantastic Mondo and rubberized surfaces all over the country.
Yeah, agreed. And it had a huge difference. But that's, you know, and a technique, I guess, is not necessarily an implement either. So I guess you have to almost change the categories. I mean, they moved the weight back or forward in the javelin because they were just throwing it too far back in the 90s. So they did that to the implement. The Fosbury flop is a technique. It's not an implement. And the surfaces are neither. So when you try to compare things, like anything else, can you really compare Babe Ruth to Barry Bonds? I don't think you can. Well, he almost saved that one. It was not a great plant, and he almost made it into something.
Looked like it stalled out about halfway there, but he managed to get in a position to try to shoot him out in the right position. Looked like nothing happening. Oh, maybe. It's a multi-event in him, though. Don't waste it. Try to make it work. So where you went to high school, did you jump off of asphalt?
I jumped off. Yeah, there was a thing called grass text, which was like asphalt. It got all in your spikes if it was warm. It sucked. But I jumped off of dirt and grass a lot. When I first jumped 7 feet in high school, it was at Mount Sac, and it had a little apron that I was able to get 3 steps on, and that was like nirvana. And I pointed, my coach and I pointed for that. He said, you've got to break it back down after March. So you've got till that last weekend in March to jump 7 feet, or you're not going to jump 7 feet till the end of the year. And I knew the facility had an apron, and that's what we focused on. And I jumped 7 feet 1/4 inch there. And I jumped 6'10 3/4 the next weekend on a less than wonderful facility. And then that was the end of good jumping for a while. Because you can't be good all the time. I mean, you know, youngsters want to be good all the time. They want to jump high all the time. They want to run fast all the time. They want to throw far all the time. And, you know, I tell the high school kids, I said, what you want is to try to get some aid to go to school. And they care about the conference and the postseason. So if you want to jump high at some meaningless competition in the middle of the season, I can peak you for that. But I'm no guarantees I can get you right for when it counts and when the coaches are watching. So it's a struggle because they do want to jump high all the time, and they want to jump all the time. They don't want to do the stuff that isn't fun. They just want to do the fun stuff. And that's a struggle as a coach. Another under vault, another plant.
Dwight, how many times have you gone to high school meets and you see the semicircle apron and they're like, we should probably put that pit on the other side of that thing?
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Don't see too many more of those facilities anymore.
No.
I really don't.
But not uncommon. You go, you should put that on the other side.
Yeah. The place where I train, where they have a full, you know, D apron and wonderful track and everything, used to have those little semicircle aprons, and they were off on a weird angle. So it's tough enough to get a high jump approach right under normal circumstances where you've got parallel and perpendicular and you can really focus on things being right so you have a straight line. Those things, it was impossible. If you didn't triangulate your measurement then, you were in deep, deep trouble. And I had to teach the kids that I was coaching at that school how to do that and how to be consistent with it and have the tapes with them and get help and all that other stuff, because as I've said many times, the approach is the backswing. You don't hit the ball with it, but if it's not right, ball's not going where you want it to. Same thing in the high jump. The approach has got to be right to put you in position to do what you want to do correctly. And same as these straight runway. 3 of the 4 jumps in the sport are on runways, but your foot needs to be in the right spot at the moment of takeoff. And if it's not, everything you've done up to that point is meaningless. And I think it's a real adjustment in a place like this with these fast runways for long and triple jumpers and pole vaulters to get their takeoff foot in the right spot.
Weeding a few of them out here at this height.
Yeah, this might end up being the height that you need to jump to score. If you have no misses through the last height, you might get a 7th or an 8th. But I think that the vaulters who make this height are the scorers. This 30-second rule really speeds things up in this event. Because think about it, there's a lot of moving parts to a pole vault competition from the standpoint of the judges when an athlete misses the height. You got to get that bar back up there. You got to call the athlete's name. You got to put where they want the standards on the board. Put their name up on the board. But they have meets here every weekend. I think it was Jada Baylark of Arkansas has already run 19 races this year, all in this building.
It does help places like here, A&M. A lot of experienced meet officials, starters, all those things are really overlooked. But if you're competing, you are grateful that you have that kind of knowledgeable people around the events.
Yeah, they run things very smoothly here. They don't get behind much. Ooh, look at that. Where'd that come from? So nice when you finally put one together. I mean, you have to live with the miscues and the misses that you've had prior to that. But it's never too early.
Well, only 4 guys over this height: Peer, Lip, Clark, and Corson now.
Oh, that was his second attempt. I thought that was his first attempt. Well, still a fine vault. Spotswood.
So far, 4 athletes cleared 5:50 here at Kentucky Live in Alabama. Clark, Texas A&M, and Corson, Alabama.
Dwight, high jump, you're looking at a run up of 8, 10. Extreme is 12 steps. Dan, when you're on this, how far am I don't know if it's necessarily how many steps you take, but you determine how far back you want to start from, because I'm trying to just long enough to get to peak speed. What am I looking for when I decide where I want to start in this event?
Well, and it really all depends on your fitness level as well. Early on in the season, you're only, first couple of meets, you're only jumping from 6 left, so 12 total. I would slowly move back, and when I was in peak form, I would do 16 stride approach, 8 right, 8 lefts. I'm sure Mondo is back to probably a 20, 10 right, 10 left. But it just, how strong are you? How fit are you? How many jumps are you able to take in a competition? But I'd say most people use that 16 as a pretty round number, and then that 16 will take you back to. It took me back to about 36 meters.
Some of these guys here, they've got plenty of runway behind them, but Mondo would use pretty much all of this runway.
Yeah.
Easily.
And Bubka would have started halfway up the
lane 5. You know, back when 160-yard tracks were the norm, because they would put them in like Madison Square Garden in arenas that's the most they could handle. It was a problem for vaulters and long and triple jumpers when they would hold that event, because it just didn't have the length. It just didn't have the room to have a decent-sized runway. Odenet over the bar on his second attempt at 16:10 3/4. Nice plant. It's a couple of nice vaults in a row, nice clearances for the LSU sophomore.
Here's Emma Ward for Syracuse.
Stay up, stay up, stay up. Yeah, good.
Get off the pit. Get off the pit.
Yeah, get off the pit quick. Zach Davis of A&M up for his third attempt. Way under. Oh man, he almost skinnied over that. The other thing in the vault, how many years ago did they shorten the pegs? That was a big deal. You know, we don't have pegs in the high jump. I made a whole lot more bars if there were pegs.
You mentioned Madison Square Garden, and listen, this is such a wonderful facility. But when you were in the midst of your career to jump at Madison Square Garden, they used to have the LA Times when he was at the Forum. Like, that was really a golden age of indoor track and field in this country that is really sorely missed. It would be great to come back. What they did with the American Track League and Tried here is wonderful, but to be in those venues and fill those was really something amazing.
That was the one thing that sort of neutralized the fact that we weren't making much money in the day, and you just had to compete so often to have it as a full-time job. At least in those days in the 70s, we were competing in front of capacity crowds. I mean, 17,105 at the Forum, and whatever Madison Square Garden held, and standing room only, and it was the noise level was just insane. Great milers and great miles being run in those days with Eamon Coughlin and Steve Scott and John Walker and all those great middle distance athletes. It was such a great energy, and when you had that many people in the building, it was just wonderful. I'll never forget those times, and I'm sorry for the athletes who are competing in far less than capacity crowds these days. Even the crowds in Europe have dwindled to some degree by comparison. So that's the one thing I take from my career is I may not have made a lot of money, but I did compete in front of capacity crowds in arenas all over the world, and that was very, very satisfying.
So you got your look at me moments, which is nice.
I did, because that's what it was about.
Well, and what was neat about those track meets as well, they'd be 2-day meets, and all day Friday there would be high school and college kids in there, Saturday morning as well, just families, and just you spend the whole day at the track, and then for that 2-hour sliver on a Saturday night, we get to see the pros. And I remember being at the Sunkist Invitational, seeing Bubka jump 19 feet indoors, coming way in from back of the runway. But I would start that indoor tour one weekend. I would be at the Rose Garden in Portland, and then I would come down to San Francisco and jump at the Cow Palace, and then go even farther south down to LA for the Sunkist meet. And you might do 2 meets down there, but then you go even down to San Diego.
Right, Jack in the Box.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And there was a big meet in Dallas there for a few years in the early 80s, thanks to Wayne Vandenberg. And I consistently competed 12 or 13 times in an indoor season, both nights every weekend for the better part of 7 weekends and a national championship. And if you made a team, a few more.
Nelson's out, but he does set a personal best. And there was a time in those meets, right, where the pole vault really was the star attraction. When you had Butka and Billy Olson and Joe Dial and those guys.
And Dan Ripley and yeah, all those guys.
World records. And I mean, that thing was, it led the way.
Yeah.
This event that we're watching now.
In fact, on the Coast Club, I mean, those were our two strong events with the high jump and the pole vault. And we had a lot of throwers, too, mostly field event guys. And it wasn't a matter of just winning your event. I mean, that was a given. You had to win. If you didn't win, you were at the junior varsity table. And then amongst the winners, you'd say, okay, so who had the best mark amongst the winners? And whoever didn't have to pay for drinks. So there was an incentive there after the meet. I mean, you had Mac Wilkins and Al Feuerbach and George Woods and geez, I'm blanking out on our other discus thrower, San Jose Cop.
Al?
No, John Powell.
John Powell.
Those guys were again throwing world records and dominating internationally as well as domestically. When you're around that kind of energy and that kind of excellence, it just raises your game, or you just go by the wayside. It was a real Lord of the Flies sort of environment, and if you didn't thrive in that environment, and at first I didn't, and thankfully, and I thank them a lot. I give them a lot of credit for my early success, because I just decided I was gonna be in there and mix it up. Steve Smith was just, may he rest in peace. We lost him just recently. He was just brutal, really brutal. First man over 18 feet indoors, and he really put it in your face. Ooh, nice vaults there. Okay, that ends the vaulting at 16-10 3/4. They will raise it, and we will come back with more coverage of the SEC. Bar's been raised to 17-2 3/4, 5 meters 25. 6 vaulters remaining in the competition, so that means the last height. Athletes who cleared the last height without misses will score. Remember, they scored at 8th place in the conference. 10 for first, 8 for second, 6 for third, and then down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to 8th. Ryan Leip for his first attempt. He has no misses throughout the competition. And he remains clean.
That step looked a little bit under, but he really stayed with it. He was able to keep that pole away from him. Just kind of elongated the bend, let him spend a little bit more time in the pocket, get a little more depth.
I think he had his standards back at 80, so he had the luxury of being able to do that. And I'm looking at the next height, 17.5 3/4. That's not high enough to qualify for NCAAs, and then 17.7 3/4, which might be. So those who do not have that qualifier, they've still got to wait a while for the bar to get up high enough for them to get in the mix 2 weeks from now when we're back here for the NCAA championships. And Corson bails out. Matthew Peer, who is leading the conference and has a pretty solid NCAA qualifier, I believe. I think he's an 18-foot vaulter this year. The only one on the field that I've seen jumping with a mask on. And an easy clearance there at 5:25, 17-2 3/4 for Pierre. Left-handed vaulter still an anomaly. Not a lot of them out there. Edmar Bastakar, the multi-eventer, still in the competition, the best vaulter of the multis. Did a nice job saving the clearance on the last height. Oh, that's a snatching defeat from the jaws of victory right there. It's a pretty decent plant, and just let the pull go the pull a little bit late. Just can't pull that arm out of the way. So he knows he's got this. Make the proper adjustment on the next one. Kenny Odenet, first attempt at 17-2 3/4. The standard's just at 65, so just think about how the bar will be closer to the box, and that will make his parabolic flight narrower than if they were back further, if you're looking from the side. Good speed, good plant. Just didn't quite time it properly as he shot off the pole. He didn't really get that pop when the pole recoiled. So that'll bring up Sean Clark, competing for A&M. Did his early collegiate vaulting at the University of Penn. And that's going to be a miss for Sean Clark. Had a miss at his opening height, 16.6 3/4, and then made the last height. And now a first attempt miss. So Matthew Pierre really in the driver's seat now with the only clearance. Ryan Light has a clearance also. So two vaulters over this height. Less than 15 minutes until the first running event on the track, the men's mile. The triple jumpers are warming up. Actually, the triple jumpers are jumping. First flight. Nice vault by Corson. Second attempt clearance. And he was under on that one. Drifted off to the side, stayed with it.
That's how you work the top of the pole right there. Nice job, nice sail away. The triple jump is underway. Kerry McLeod, who was for a long time last year the national leader in the long jump. He's over 16.09, 52.9.5 in the triple jump. They're through 2 rounds.
So back to Bastakar for his second attempt here. Had everything over but his right arm and shoulder on the first one. Are we getting close up to his PR? Is he a 530 guy?
540.
540, okay.
He's one of the only two guys to be headed to the NCAA championship from this conference. So. But he also competed in 7 events in the heptathlon last couple of days.
All right, Sean Clark of A&M up for his third and final vault here at 17.2 3/4. He's currently in 4th place position, so 5 points for the Aggies if he fails to make this height. And he's over on a 3rd attempt. That was an experience vault.
Did a great job with his left arm, though, keeping that pole away. Really bent the pole a lot and just came off the top of it and had big clearance. He jumps like that on the next bar. He should be able to make it. So much feeling goes on from one jump to the next. You switch poles, you get a feeler jump before you put it together. So.
Bastakar up for his 3rd attempt. He's had the height on a couple of vaults. It's certainly within his capability. He's a 17.8½ vaulter. He actually carries the pole and runs on the runway like a vaulter.
He really does, and you can tell it's almost maybe a first event for him. He's a pole vaulter who came over to the multi-events, but all day long he looked like he was just running out of gas a little bit. Like he did do the multi, just no pop, no
pop,
no
exactly.
sharpness. Yeah.
All right, Kenny Odenet, the last one up at this height. So 4 vaulters over at this height. Matthew Peer, who has no misses. Ryan Leip, who also has no misses. James Corson with a couple misses. And Sean Clark, who made that height on this final height on his 3rd attempt. And that will be the end of Kenny Odenet's day. They will raise the bar to 17.5 3/4, and we will step aside and get ready to call the running events. Next, the men's mile will be the first on the program.
Kicks off with number 24, Missouri, taking on Florida. That is followed by Mississippi State and Gig'em. Texas A&M Aggies. Coverage starts 6:30 Eastern right here on the SEC Network, and of course it's always streaming on the ESPN app. Go right to the longest event on the program, Dwight, 5,000 meters.
What an exciting race this was. A huge field, their maximum allowable of 24. Lots of juggling in the beginning. It turned into an Arkansas affair until Corey Bullock, the freshman from Ole Miss, decided to take over. And we thought, okay, they'll certainly suck him back into the Arkansas Razorback group, but it was not to be. Corey Bullock pulls off what many would consider a huge upset, winning the 5,000. But Dan O'Brien, Arkansas still scored with 5 of their 6 athletes.
Well, Arkansas looked to score big in this event, and they got 26 points out of it. Boyd, McLeod, Murphy, Young, and Cheb Mosen all do their job. Big points for the Razorbacks.
10 big points there for Ole Miss. Arkansas in that race came through with 27, and that's part of the reason. After 7 events, they have a 23-point lead over Alabama, LSU, who will challenge for the runner-up position. Take a look at the men's mile out on the track for this one. The collegiate record just happened. It happened in this building, a smoking 3:50.39 from Cooper Teare. There are great athletes in this event here in this conference. And perhaps that man right there, I'll be honest, he's my favorite kid in this competition. Waleed Suleiman from Ole Miss. Parents left Darfur when he was a youngster, 8 years in Jordan in a refugee camp, moved to Richmond, Virginia. Now he's in Oxford, Mississippi. He's truly an American story, and just this past fall, now an American citizen.
I came to the U.S. in 2014, and and then I just basically had to go through the process as every single person who's become a legal resident of the United States. And you have to wait for 5 years and take the test and all that kind of stuff, and then you get your citizenship from there. The ceremony itself is the exact same thing. Everybody's just lined up by name, and then they call your name one by one. You go around, you take your citizenship certificate, you go back and you sit down. I've came a long way, all the way across the world to here, have the opportunity to compete in the United States, so I can just be the best. I'm trying to just go out there and win everything I could possibly do.
Well, there's a good look at Waleed Suleiman. And believe it or not, this guy, he's run the fastest time in the mile in this conference. He led 3 other Ole Miss Rebs to an under 4-minute mile just a couple weeks ago. But he really made some mistakes last year at this meet, only finishing 4th. He let the pace go way too slow, left all the kickers in the end a chance to give him a chance. And there's Eamon Kemboy. He's one of the only other guys outside of the running Rebs who have run under 4 flat this season. The transfer from Campbell has been a very useful and productive runner for Arkansas.
Arkansas with 2 potential point scorers in this 10-person mile race. Kemboy, along with his teammate Andrew Kibet, the sophomore. Kemboy, a senior. He'll stay in these 2 packs through the first 2 turns and then break for the pole on the finishing straight. 8 laps of this 200-meter oval here at the Randall Tyson Track Center. Just refurbished, a $40 million refurbish of this facility and the adjoining facility that accommodates the throws. And John Bishop of Texas A&M taking the early lead. Everett Smolders of Ole Miss is there. Waleed Suleiman back in the middle of the pack. Now he's moving it up to his teammate. Ole Miss 2nd and 3rd. Bishop well out in front. Probably a 10-meter lead as we come up to the 400-meter mark. Roughly 60.4 for Bishop.
62.4 for Suleiman. Kemboy right behind him at 62, and Smulders 63. A really honest pace here. They're just outside a 4-minute mile pace. Somebody to keep in mind there in the gold and purple in the 6th position, David Bove from LSU. He's run 3:57 this season.
Well, it was a jog and sprint affair last year. The winning time just under 4:15. The meet record is just 3:59.4. Sub 4-minute miles in this conference championships are rare due to the tactical nature of the event. So Bishop, Suleiman, Kemboy, Smulders.
Well, Kemboy is coming back in the 3,000 meters as well as a few other guys in this race, but I think we learned last year the guys that tried to go out a little bit slower, tried to save their kick for the ends, just so that they were going to be, just so that they could double later that day. That strategy doesn't work. The pace has got to be honest here as you see Bove move up on the outside.
It's Davis Bove of LSU in the gold and purple, causing a little congestion there. Bishop continuing to lead as he has from the beginning. Suleiman now coming up on his right shoulder. Things slowing down a little bit. Suleiman and Kemboy running a little extra distance just to stay out of trouble as Bishop has slowed the pace down a little bit. Now Suleiman into the lead, coming to the 3/4 mark, about 3:02.6. So a sprint here will certainly bring in under 40 minutes, and that may be what it is. It is Suleiman who has now shifted gears, and Kemboy covers the move. But they've separated themselves now from the rest of the pack by about 7 or 8 meters. Smulders now 3rd, Bove 4th as Bishop fades to 5th. Coming up to the bell, it is Suleiman. Kemboy marking him. You may see a meet record. It might take that for the winner to win.
Well, Suleiman gritted his teeth there. It looks like he's in a little bit of pain, but I think he still has another gear.
This is Kemboy's home track. He knows every inch of it. Suleiman, Kemboy. It's going to be down to the final sprint. Suleiman takes a look back. That's not usually a look of confidence, but Suleiman shifts again, and he will win it, and he will set a meet record as they both go under 4 minutes. Unofficially 3:58.28 now. 3:58.56 for Kemboy. Smulders finishing 3rd, just missing going under 4 minutes. Davis Bove finishing 4th, and Suleiman, a smart race for him. He had to dig down deep, but he had it.
Well, with about 150 meters to go, Suleiman definitely looks like he's in some pain, but he did the right thing here. And everybody on that backstretch gets the benefit of looking up at the big screen. He knew exactly where Kemboy was going to be. So when Kemboy made the move, all Suleiman had to do was just push a little bit harder. Just too much separation to come back for. Kemboy's more of a longer distance guy. He doesn't quite have that 800 meter, 400 meter sprint finish like some other world-class 1500 meter mile guys will. Suleiman wins in 2019, takes a year off, comes back and wins in 2021.
And this time he gets a meet record for his trouble. Waleed Suleiman finally winning in under 4 minutes, and John Anderson, an outstanding performance by the Ole Miss Rebel.
Waleed Suleiman, congratulations. You just took the oldest record in the SEC record book out. 44 years that mark has stood. Take me through the race, what you maybe learned from last year's that you applied to this year.
I started out saying that last year wasn't really my year. I just had a lot of trouble, like behind the curtains. But this race was something else. I did not think it was gonna go out that fast. I'm glad that Van was like making us work out, do good workouts to be able to run that kind of race. Sorry, I can't really speak right now. I'm tired.
We'll let you go then. But you know what? I want to see a guy run 3:58 and look like it meant something. Look like it ties you up a little bit.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Hottie.
The SEC Championships, weight thrown in the building next to us, Dan.
Well, newly refurbished facility, but this guy absolutely dominated today. A senior from Florida, Thomas Mardall, this was his 4th attempt throw. He blasts that thing out to 79 feet, 2 3/4 of an inches. Our second place finisher in the men's weight throw, Bobby Colantonio from Alabama, just a junior. Nice step up from 2 years ago, finishing 7th place. This was his 4th round throw, 73.6. Our 3rd place finisher in the weight throw, another young man from Norway, John Nerdahl, senior at LSU. On his 6th attempt, he goes out 71.11 3/4. But nobody, I'm telling you, nobody touched Thomas Mardahl today. All of his throws were over 78.4.5. He finishes with 79.3 1/4, meet PR. 5th all-time on the collegiate list, guys. Fantastic dominance.
So as we get ready for the men's 60, here are the team standings after 8 of the 17 events. Arkansas now in the lead by 23 points. Ole Miss trailing LSU in 3rd, Alabama with 34 in 4th. Men's 60-meter hurdles final. Grant Holloway, not only the collegiate record holder and the championship record holder, he is now the world record holder as of this last week. He ran 7:29 in Madrid, Spain.
There's Lance Lang from Kentucky. He had a nice qualifying run yesterday, but he was 2nd last year in this open 60.
Now this is just the 60 meters without hurdles. Lang in lane 2, he'll be 2nd from the right. Christopher Grant right next to him from Auburn in lane 3, also from Jamaica.
He was 3rd at last year's indoor championships, and he'll be next to another Auburn Tiger who was the fastest qualifier yesterday, Dante Brown, 6:62 in his qualifying round.
So this could very well be a blanket finish for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Right in the middle of the track. All lanes being used today. Lane 1 was open all day yesterday, and 8 often as well. There's how they will line up. 2 Arkansas point score potential in this 60-meter dash final.
Yeboah from Texas A&M in lane 1, lots of experience. He's competed for Ghana at multiple championships. Hari for Arkansas on the outside, he had a good qualifying run yesterday as well.
Hari from Denmark, 4-time Danish champion, 2nd from the left. But the fastest runners from the prelims in the middle of the track. Lang, Grant, Brown. They run right to left here at the Randall Tyson Track Center. 1 on the bottom, 8 on the top. Good start by Lang, terrible start by Brown, but a super start by Dante Brown. I got the 2 Auburn guys mixed up. Dante Brown, 6:67. And it was not a blanket finish. They were well separated. Auburn goes 1-2, Brown and Grant, 18 points for Auburn in the men's 60.
Well, in the orange bottoms, fourth from the right, Dante Brown gets a fantastic start, but what wins him this race is that transition from his drive phase into his upright running. Watch him stay down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He stays down for a good 10 strides, comes up and just runs away from this field. There were some good starts on the outside there as well. Hari looked like he got a good start, but Dante Brown absolutely runs away from this field.
It was Grant with the poor start, but he did a nice job to recover and get 2nd. So a 1-2 sweep for Auburn. Arkansas gets 3rd place and 6th place points, so a good haul for them. And Auburn 1-2 in the 60-meter dash. Yesterday they had the men's high jump. Javon Harrison has been dominating. This is Dontavius Hill from Auburn, came in at 6'11 3/4, and with a slight brush on the way down, he was successful in doing so. Just 8th at this meet last 2 years. But this is Javon Harrison, the outstanding high jumper, long jumper, twice already the champion in the high jump. This is his jump at 7.2.5, tons of room to spare. And because he didn't need to do so, he did not try any higher. This is Dontavius Hill, who passed after 2 misses at 7.2.5 to 7.3 3/4. A pretty decent attempt. Certainly good enough to think that that's a bar he can clear in the future. But unsuccessful, he ends up 2nd place. Javon Harrison wins his 3rd title in a row with 7.2.5 this time. Hill 2nd, Alan Gordon of Ole Miss finishing 3rd. Next event on the track, the 2-section final of the men's 400 meters. Michael Norman setting that world record as a collegiate record as well in 2018. And in this building, Karani James, the 2012 Olympic champion, has the championship record at 44.80.
There's Elijah Godwin from Georgia. He'll be the fastest qualifier in this heat. 46.03 in the qualifying. Talked to his coach this morning, Althea Thomas, and she said he's the kind of guy who needs to get out fast. He doesn't have a real even race. He goes out really hard in the beginning and just tries to hold on. There's Noah Williams. He'll be on the inside. Not a great lane draw for him. Lane 4. He ran 46.23 yesterday. Multiple MAC champion while he was at Akron.
Elijah Godwin out there by himself in lane 6. Lane 5 on this track is the preferred lane for these 400 and 200 meter races, because it's just not quite as uphill, but a good downhill when you come in the finishing stretch. But the advantage for Godwin is that because he gets out quickly, he doesn't need to see anybody in his vision, and his goal would be to not see anybody until after the finish line. The winners and other places are determined on time. 8 finalists, 8 scorers. They got here by qualifying by time. James Milholland of Arkansas down there in lane 3, then Noah Williams in 4, Leander Forbes of Alabama in 5, and Elijah Godwin of Georgia on the outside in lane 6. Godwin digging hard right from the beginning. And Noah Williams making up the stagger on Leander Forbes in the first 50 meters. Williams doing a good job navigating that tighter lane 4. Now they battle for the pole, and it's no battle. Godwin has it. 21.08 at the 200. Now, can he hold on?
Noah Williams looks nice and easy on this back straight. If he wants to pass him, he might want to try to do it before the turn here.
Godwin starting to tie up a little bit. We saw the same thing in the prelims. Now Noah Williams has got a slingshot off that turn. Godwin really tying up. Williams wins the heat, establishes the time to beat at 45.26 now official for Noah Williams. And he really used Godwin almost as a rabbit.
Well, Noah Williams ran that entire second lap clear out there in lane 2. He certainly had to run farther. Couldn't pass him on the back straight. Had to wait till the home straight, but Godwin used all of his energy in that first 320 meters. But Noah Williams with a nice measured run. And you're right, Dwight. He absolutely did use Godwin as a rabbit there. Just stayed off that right shoulder. He ran a little bit farther, but he was comfortable. But outstanding times in section 1.
45.26, the number 3 time amongst the collegians this year, and establishes quite the goal to shoot for the section 2 400 meter runners. So this is Bryce Dedman of Texas A&M, finally a senior, and he talks about his thoughts 1 year ago when they were getting ready for the national championship meet.
We went out to eat the night before the day everything got shut down, and I think like it was the Jazz game, and like I remember the referees ran out on the court and like stopped the whole game. I was like, there's no way that if they shut down the entire NBA, we're gonna have this track meet tomorrow. We went to the track the next day and we're kind of like doing like a run through of a warm up, just kind of like getting loose and stuff before the meet. And I just remember Coach Henry like slammed his phone shut and he was like, all right, wrap it up, we're going home. When everything kind of started to settle in, it was like, wow, this is actually over.
And we were right there with you at the venue, but no competition to be had. He is the defending 400-meter champion from this meet last year, running out of lane 6.
Well, there were a lot of dejected people at that track that day, just getting in a little bit of practice, but Dedmon looked fantastic yesterday, and we got to talking about the 400 today, and somebody said there's going to be some really quick times because everybody took it easy yesterday. I didn't think they took it easy yesterday, but already in the first heat, we've seen faster times. Here's Dwight St. Hilaire. He looked fantastic yesterday. Made his qualifying run look super easy.
The other Dwight in the building. Champion Allison will start in that terrible lane 3 for the 400. Worse for the 200, of course. Dwight St. Hilaire of Kentucky in lane 4. Ryan Willey of Florida, who had a nice run, the freshman, yesterday in the heats. And then Bryce Dedmon, the veteran, on the outside in lane 6. Dedmon could definitely play the rabbit role for Hilaire and Willey, both who ran very strong yesterday. And they are as even as they could be through the first 100. Hilaire really working it hard for that pole, and he gets it. 45.26. Remember the time to beat 21.06. That's a couple of clicks faster than the first heat, the first section. Dwight St. Hilaire leading it. Now Dedmon coming back, showing that strength. Having to go a little wide on the turn, running the extra distance. Hilaire now hurting, having gone for that pole. It's going to be very close at the finish. Hilaire, I don't know that he held him off. I think Ryan Willey might have caught him at the tape. Yes, 45.66 for Willey, which is not fast enough to beat Noah Williams from Section 1. So Williams will be your 400-meter champion in the SEC. And Dwight St. Hilaire, really, how much energy do you save by letting up like that?
Well, 21.06, Dwight Hilaire ran that first 200 so hard. Everybody in this group was out of energy except for Willey in the last 75 meters. But that is an absolute picture of fatigue. And the freshman comes in and steals the heat. Had a chance to talk to Mike Holloway earlier today. He said he was very pleased the way his freshman competed yesterday. But Heat 1, you get your winner.
First and second out of Heat 1, and the champion is downstairs with John.
All right, Noah Williams, tell us what's it like to win the 400 in the SEC as opposed to the MAC?
Man, it feels great. You know, my first few years running in the MAC, it was good competition for me. They was pushing me, but I looked for something more. And I knew if you want to be the best, you got to come to the best conference, and that's the SEC. So this is the most that I pushed myself, and I got a job done. So, you know, there's nothing more to say than that.
What's it like to sit in that chair and watch that second heat?
Man, my heart was just booming the whole time. I mean, I was excited, a little nervous, but I knew that I did the work that I had to. I gave it my all, and whether I won or lost, I would have been satisfied because I gave it everything I had on the track, so there's nothing more I can ask for.
And there's nothing more, you can't place any higher than first. You're at the top of the podium. Noah Williams, congratulations.
Right. Appreciate it, sir. Take care.
All right, congratulations, Noah Williams. An outstanding run by the LSU Tiger. Back with more. The 60-meter hurdles on next.
Watching the 2021 SEC Indoor Track and Field Championships. Want to tell you about some SEC women's basketball coming up. They got the conference tournament right around the corner. First round coverage tips off Wednesday, 4 Eastern, right here on the SEC Network. Don't forget, every game of the SEC tournament streams live on the ESPN app. Dan O'Brien, the DMR is one of the favorites of the distance coaches. It's their Super Bowl.
Well, it really is. The DMR is something everybody looks forward to for the conference meet, and a team not named Ole Miss or Wisconsin has won this thing in the last 10 years. Waleed Suleiman, who competes in the men's mile, he got the Rebels out to an early lead, and it was Garcia Romo who brought him home. He really created the distance on that last 1600 leg. But the big news is, look at the kid in second place. He's just a freshman from Bama. He brought them all the way back from 10th position. He ran a 3:51 for second place. But you get the shark fin, you got the home run swing by Ole Miss, and they come away with another distance medley relay championship and a new meet record.
So here are the men's team standings after 11 of the 17 events, and you can see that Arkansas running it away with it like we thought they would. Lead over LSU. Ole Miss just a half point in front of Alabama and Auburn. Auburn getting 18 points in the men's 60 as we get ready now for the men's 60-meter hurdles. Collegiate record holder and championship record holder is Grant Holloway. He is also now the world record holder. He ran 7:29 this last week in Madrid, Spain. 8 finalists, starting with Damian Thomas, the 21-year-old Jamaican senior of LSU. We've watched his progress over the last several years, becoming really a dominant hurdler in this conference.
Well, fastest time in the conference, 7:66. Qualified yesterday, 7:68. Looked well in control. To his right will be his teammate, Eric Edwards. But this man right here, just a youngster, Lemonius, a sophomore from Arkansas, he had a fantastic second half of the race to win his heat, 7:68. Big personal best for him, so keep an eye on him. He'll be to the left.
Arkansas and LSU with 2 athletes in here to score in the 60-meter hurdles. The action in the middle of the track. Thomas of LSU in 5. Lemonius of Arkansas right next to him on his left in 4. 2 Jamaicans going at it here in the SEC. Thomas was 3rd at this meet 1 year ago. And Edwards with a great reaction to the gun. Eric Edwards out there for LSU, but here comes Thomas. It's Thomas, Edwards. It's a 1-2 sweep for LSU in the hurdles. Incredible start by Eric Edwards. 7.60 for Thomas.
Well, that certainly was the start that Eric Edwards Jr. wanted. The Eric Edwards Jr. on the far left in the yellow uni. He gets a fantastic start, but Damian Thomas did exactly what you're supposed to do when you get a bad start. Be patient. Just run your race. Just get quicker in between. Look how far back Damian Thomas was to start that race. Edwards Jr. did a great job, but Thomas with just a more power, a little bit quicker hurdling over those last 2 barriers for a 1-2 finish. The Tigers love it. Fastest 2 guys in the conference all season long. Don't let us down.
And they sweep it 7:60 and 7:67, but then Arkansas right there with 3rd and 4th with Gilbert and Lemonius. That 7:60, second fastest time amongst collegians in 2021 for Thomas. Right on track 2 weeks from the NCAA championships. Well, they did some long jumping as well yesterday, right after the high jump. And Javon Harrison, who had already won the high jump for the 3rd time, comes down the runway for his first attempt in the long jump. Incredible height off the board. And an amazing 27 feet 4 inch new championship record for the high jumper, long jumper from LSU. He was 4th at this meet last year. This is Kerry McLeod from Tennessee. This is his final attempt. He's the defending champion. Transferred from Emporia State, and on his 6th attempt, he goes over 27 feet 3/4 of an inch, a lifetime best for McLeod, but it only gets him 2nd. Ryan Brown down at 26.7 3/4 for 3rd. Matt Bowling, the sprinter, got 5th with 26.5 3/4. They were long jumping yesterday amongst the men. Next event on the track, the men's 800-meter final. Paul Ehring of Virginia, the collegiate record holder. He was the Olympic champion way back in Seoul in 1988. And Donovan Brazier, who is tearing it up now as a pro, when he was at A&M for a cup of coffee, set the championship record. Kieran Taylor of Arkansas, more Arkansas finalists. They have way more than anybody else in the men's side.
I was going to say, there's a young man with a mustache. Kieran Taylor, he looked really comfortable in his qualifying round, like he just sped around in fourth gear and had one more gear to spend. John Rivera from Ole Miss on the outside, he chose to lead his qualifying race literally from start to finish. Looked like he labored a little bit down the stretch, but real solid personal best this year, 1:48.50, and an easy qualifying for him.
8 athletes in this final, all potential scorers, providing they don't get disqualified or for some reason don't finish. Arkansas with just 1 entry in. There's John Rivera of Ole Miss, 4th at this meet last year. Also represents Puerto Rico internationally. 5 in the group on the start-finish line. 4 on the outside. They will stay in those groups through the first 2 turns and then break for the pole on the finishing stretch. Dasky Anderson of Mississippi State pushing it down on the inside. You can see him in the dark gray of Mississippi State. Very tall athlete. Jostling there right at the pole. John Rivera taking up the lead just as he did in his heat yesterday. Brandon Miller of Texas A&M, the freshman, drops in for 2nd. Navasky Anderson is 3rd. And from Tennessee, that's Alex Kay, another tall athlete in the orange shorts.
He was a heat winner yesterday. Looked real solid in his race as well.
54 for the first 400. That is certainly comfortable for this group. Anderson now limping badly. Whether he's stepped on, we don't know, but he's really having a tough time.
Here comes Baylor Franklin from Ole Miss, moves up to 3rd position.
That's a lot of energy being expended getting up there. The 2 teammates up there from Ole Miss.
And when they go shoulder to shoulder, they're going to be tough to pass here.
Rivera and Franklin. And Brandon Miller trying to make a race that's not Ole Miss sweep. Brandon Miller now going around Rivera. Rivera, remember, he's led from the front. It's going to be Brandon Miller of A&M going to win it. Rivera going to hang on for 2nd. Kieran Taylor got 4th for Arkansas. And diving across the line like he almost did in the qualifying, he came up right at the end. Grady Shiflett of Alabama ended up 3rd, but it's Brandon Miller, the freshman Aggie, running smart that last half lap.
Well, I got a chance to ask Pat Henry, what is it about the 800 meters and the 400 meters that is so special at Texas A&M? And he says you got to build the team of your core of your team from somewhere. I love the middle distances. We always look for those half-milers. We'll certainly see a thing Mo a little bit later, but that is just really smart running from Brandon Miller. I think it was a little bit more tactical.
Back at the Randall Tyson Track Center on the campus of the University of Arkansas. Pole vault earlier. Matthew Peer, the defending champion from the University of Kentucky, currently 7th in the NCAA, has a solid mark to get into the championship meet in 2 weeks. And he was flawless throughout the competition. This is his first attempt clearance at 17.9 3/4. Easy clearance for Peer, the senior from Kentucky. Wins his 2nd title, but this is the man of the event. James Corson, the junior from Auburn, 2nd attempt at 17.9 3/4. He set 4 lifetime bests in the competition today and put himself right in the mix for the NCAA championships in 2 weeks. He was outside the qualifier by about 4 or 5 inches, needed a jump Lapeer wins it on misses over James Corson. Ryan Leip of Alabama gets third place points for the Crimson Tide. So here are the updated team standings with the pole vault included. Arkansas now breaks the century mark, a 23-point lead over LSU, who is solidly in second over Alabama, Ole Miss, and Auburn. Time now for the two-section final in the 200 meters. Elijah Hall of Houston, the collegiate record holder from 3 seasons ago. Jareem Richards set the meet record 4 years ago. 4 athletes in each section of this 200. We start section 1. Joseph Fambulle of Florida, the 19-year-old sophomore. You wouldn't want to get in his way running a 200.
Well, he started out of the 60-meter. He had a nice 200-meter run yesterday. Big fella manages his 200-meter track very well, and there's Lance Lang on the outside.
Saw him earlier in the 60-meter dash.
Second last year in the 60. Trying to run more 200 meters this year.
So 1 lap of this oval, all in lanes. The preferred lane on this track, lane number 5. That's where Joseph Fambulle is. You get the benefit of a good downhill with not quite as much uphill as in lane 6.
And somebody on your outside to chase down.
From the inside, Camel of LSU, Miller of South Carolina, then Fambulle of Florida, Lang of Kentucky. Lang, the early leader. Now they go uphill. Now Fambulle making up that stagger. Fambulle, the sophomore, now charging towards the finish line, establishing the time to beat 20:30. Let's see if it corrects up. 20:32 officially for Fambulle. Number 10 all-time NCAA mark for Fambulle in the men's 200.
Well, it took Joseph Fambulle a little bit of time to really get going, almost 100 meters into the race, but man, he comes off this turn and has all the momentum. I think he even shocks himself on how fast he ran there. 20:32, lifetime best. And a huge improvement on his run yesterday.
And you'll know some of the names ahead of him: Walter Dix, Xavier Carter, John Capel, Sean Crawford, many of them Olympians. He wins it, establishes the time to beat Lance Lang. Not a terrible run for second in 20:79. So now they get to wait to see what might happen in this section of the 200 meters. And there is the man of the hour, Matthew Bowling of Georgia. He has that preferred lane 5, and he ran very well yesterday in his preliminary heat. Just a sophomore now at Georgia. 5th in the long jump yesterday with 26.5 3/4. Along with that blistering 200-meter heat. Outside of him, Terrence Laird, the senior from LSU, the defending champion.
Bowling 20:37 yesterday. A very nice run. This young man, though, it's just such a down-to-earth kid, so grounded. He just doesn't let the hype of social media really get to him. Millions of people have viewed his races on YouTube, but he's just a really down-to-earth guy, and his dad continues to tell him, look, you're only a sophomore in college. You really haven't done that much yet. So I like that type of an attitude. And Terrence Laird on the outside, man, this kid is just a live wire. Walks to the beat of his own drum. And an interesting personality, but he looked light and lively and quick yesterday. 20:46 in his qualifying run.
Dang it. What a great setup for Bowling, though, with Laird on his outside, knowing that the time to beat is 20:32, a time that after yesterday's run, he has to think it's within his grasp. So Joseph Fambulle, no doubt, down on the infield, nervous at what might happen in this second section. He puts down the number 10 time in collegiate history, but no guarantee that he's the champion. From the inside, it's Broom of A&M, Davis of Florida, then Matt Bowling of Georgia, Terrence Laird of LSU. Now watch that line. We had a lot of DQs in this race from yesterday on the men's side. And Bowling is going to be DQ'd. Laird is going to win the heat anyway. 2028. What does it correct to? It stays at 2028, and that is your champion right there. Terrence Laird knew what he had to do. 2032 is the time that was put up by that man, Joseph Fahnbulleh of Florida, and Terrence Laird runs 2028 to knock it down. Matt Bowling finishes second, but he'll certainly be disqualified for running inside the line. That now is the number 10 all time amongst collegians in the 200.
Congratulations from Fahnbulleh and Mike Holloway. Here we see Matthew Bowling, second from the left in the black uniform as he comes around the turn. Watch these steps. Watch, that's his line. You can see that he clearly steps not only on the line, but inside the line, and that's just him pressing. Laird had such a great start. He went out so hard, and that was a good thing because it was gonna pull Matthew Bowling, but he got too far inside. You have to really stay in the middle of the outside lane on that turn. But what a run by Laird. He comes in and says, you know what, I'm the defending champion. I want to keep it.
And that is also an SEC championship record. So congratulations to Terrence Laird, outstanding run. Joseph Fahnbulleh wins it from section 1. Matt Bowling will be disqualified. Back with more.
With protocols and some people sitting out, you know, Texas A&M, you know, Arkansas sends 27 people. They get 27 people into the meet. Georgia only has 17 people in the meet. We're going to see the numbers outside really certainly even up. Everybody will be able to bring a max number to those championships.
Section 1 has the requisite amount of people running in it. You can only have 24 total. So there was 8 entered here. There will be 16 in section 2. And almost assuredly, all the scoring will take place based on the effort of the athletes in section 2.
We have seen scores from section 1, but
it's rare.
It's yeah, section 2 is always the higher seeded athletes.
Kentucky with 3 runners in this section. 15 laps of this 200-meter oval. It's Carl Thiessen of Tennessee making a move to go from the back close to the front. Sam Bowers of Georgia currently in the lead.
Bowers has run 8:10 this season. Thiessen 8:14. Brady Grant from Texas A&M out there, he's at 8:17. Kern from Kentucky, he's run 8:10.
Well, it really argues in this section 1 to kind of push the pace and run as quickly as you possibly can and hope that the second section becomes tactical, goes out slow, and then maybe you get some scorers out of this first section. So we're coming around with 12 laps remaining. We've established the 7 runners here. We're going to step aside for a few minutes, come back with the conclusion of this section 1 of the 3,000 meters. Back at the Southeast Conference Track and Field Championships. We're in the first section of the 3,000 meters for men. 7 laps remaining in this 15-lap race. As Dylan Allen of Kentucky, one of 3 Wildcats in this 7-person section. We had a scratch by Kieran Wood of Missouri. that cut the field from 8 to 7. There will be 16 athletes contesting the second section, the seeded section, the section from which we expect all the scoring to happen. That's Tennessee's Carl Thiessen now into the lead. Looks like Dylan Allen has had enough, so we're now down to 6 runners. Sam Bowers of Georgia there in second place. That's Ethan Kern of Kentucky in 4th, and Matt Duval, his teammate, in 5th. Eric Casares of Texas A&M in the back of that group of 5.
Well, they picked up the pace a little bit. We saw some 34-second laps, some 33s, and now they're dipped into the 32s, and you've seen some 31-second laps last couple of laps. Just outside a 4-minute mile pace.
Now coming up on 4 laps to go, about 800 meters left. Continues to be Carl Thiessen, followed by Sam Bowers, then Ethan Kern, Matt Duval, and Eric Casares.
Another 33-second lap. They're well outside of 4-minute mile pace.
Carl Thiessen, the leader, was 7th in the 5K yesterday. He set a lifetime best in placing, so he scored a couple points for Tennessee. Casares now moving up to 3rd. He was 12th in yesterday's 5K. So 2 laps remaining, 400 meters to go.
As these athletes get on the back straight there, everybody glances up at the Jumbotron. They've got a big screen set up on that side of the building. Athletes are able to look up and see where they are in the pack, and it's very strategic. Be able to look up there, be able to look up there and see that I have a gap behind me or I have somebody right on my shoulder.
Thiessen's done a nice job creating a gap of about now 10 meters going into the bell. No one responding to cover the move.
Well, Thiessen did it right. If you're going to make a move, make a decisive move, and he did and pulled away from the pack.
Ethan Kern's decided to try and give chase, but the gap's just too big, and Thiessen is in full flight. Kern just shifted into another gear. I think he's going to run out of real estate, though. Carl Thiessen wins it, followed by Ethan Kern, making the move too late. 8:09.78 for Thiessen. And we can keep an eye on that and see if that's a time that scores any points after the second section has run. All right, we're going to go to break. There are the results of that first section. We will be back with the seeded section of the men's.
Welcome you back into the Randall Tyson Indoor Track Center, SEC Track and Field Championships. Team score of the men, 15 of 17 minutes. 2 to go. Arkansas in control, but LSU, I don't know if they scared them, but they certainly got the Razorbacks' attention. But now we go for the 3K, and that's where the Razorbacks got a few guys who can probably salt this thing away. Dwight, Dan, ready with the call.
Here we are for the men's 3,000 meters. Alistair Craig, the collegiate record holder. Cameron Griffith, the meet record holder. 16 entered. 15 showed up for the line. Davis Bove of LSU is a scratch. He ran the mile earlier, scored for the Tigers. 15 laps of this 200-meter track. They will stay in those groups through the first 2 turns and then break for the pole on the home straight. And this race featuring Gilbert Boyd of Arkansas and Kenya, Eliud Kipsang of Alabama and Kenya, and Cole Bullock of Ole Miss, doubling back from his 5,000-meter win yesterday, just a freshman. Walid Suleiman is also in this race, doubling back from the mile.
I don't see.
Oh, I don't see him.
Yeah.
He is also a scratch, so we're down to 14. Suleiman winning the mile earlier and setting a meet record in so doing. And Boyd in his customary back of the pack position early on in these distance races.
And Alabama's going to trick us today. They wore all white during the distance medley relay 2 nights ago, and today they're in all crimson.
In fact, all three of the Arkansas athletes back in the back. So the pace is reasonable in that they're nicely strung out here early on. Dalton Hengst leading, and we'll come back with more of the coverage of this 3,000-meter final right after this. This is Florida senior Connor Bardell. This was his 2nd attempt at the competition. 2nd at this meet last year, 4th the year before. Using that spin technique. And on the 2nd attempt, he gets out to 62.3 1/4. That would put him finally in 3rd place. Alabama senior Isaac Odegbesan, his 3rd attempt, 65.4 1/4. He's from Nigeria. He was 4th at this meet 2 years ago. Transferred from Middle Tennessee State. And then into the ring, Jordan West, the Tennessee junior. This was his 5th attempt. He was 6th at this meet 2 years ago, and that took the lead. A big lifetime best for the Tennessee junior. Then into the ring for his 6th attempt, once again came the Alabama senior Isaac Odegbesan. He saved his best for last. The number 6 throw amongst collegians, 67.3 1/4 to steal it on the 6th and final frame for the Crimson Tide. Nice to PR in a big meet. Watch him at the NCAA championships in 2 weeks. All right, coming up now, just 5 laps remaining. And now Eliud Kipsang, the freshman from Alabama, has taken over the lead. And Mario Garcia Romo of Ole Miss, and from Spain, they're in 2nd. Amon Kemboy of Arkansas currently in the 3rd position. Arkansas 3rd, 4th, and about 6th currently. There's Connor Bullock, the somewhat surprise 5,000-meter winner yesterday, there with the longer hair, in about 5th position now.
Well, Bullock looks good. He doesn't look like he's labored at all, but it's really interesting. After that distance medley relay, Alabama finishing 2nd, Eliud Kipsang, he really became a big topic of discussion on social media. And not much is really known about him, but he got a 3:42 personal best in the 1500. He's run 1,000 meters in 2:26. He's been under 4 minutes in the mile a couple of different times, but this is his first SEC championship meet, and we're getting to meet this guy literally for the first time.
A 24-year-old freshman, so an awful lot of experience being at that age, just being a freshman. Kipsang looking around. It's gotten a little more tactical. You can see the group is bunched up. Nobody is really out of the race at this point. A lot of opportunities for scoring. LSU runner trying to get through on the rail. And that's very dangerous here. Good way to turn an ankle. Eric Hoskin really dancing on that inside lane. Coming up with 2 laps remaining now, and literally everyone is in this race and could score.
Kipsang's on the ranked 8th on the descending order mile list, and a lot of people think if he can run low 350s, As Ole Miss begins to make a move, he could challenge the Oregon athletes at the NCAA championships.
Arkansas with 4 athletes in this race. And LSU making a move up the leaderboard. This probably should put it away. Garcia-Romo takes the lead, and at the bell, Kipsang hotly in pursuit right there. Kemboy also in full flight, checks back to see where he's at. Bullock is not out of it, but that 5,000 probably took a little of the sting out of the kick that he showed yesterday. Mario Garcia-Romo, can he hold off Eliud Kipsang? Yes, he can. Mario Garcia-Romo of Ole Miss wins it over Kipsang and Kemboy of Arkansas. Bullock comes up for 4th after his victory yesterday in the 5,000.
Well, Garcia-Romo was the one who broke open the distance medley relay and really created space on that final leg in the 1600. He showed great patience, and he just had a fantastic kick over the last lap of this 3,000 meters.
Second straight year. Now it's just kind of final point totals and the margin of victory. But there is still something to be said for winning the 4x4 in this conference meet. That's a gold standard championship, a gold standard quality here, Dwight and Dan.
3 sections of this 4x400 meter relay. The first section with just 2 teams in it. It'll be South Carolina starting out of lane 5 and Mizzou out of lane 6. Some of the teams in here, for example, Georgia, plan to run a full-on, fully manned 4x4 because they want to get a better time for the NCAA championships in 2 weeks. So according to the sheets we've been given, this is Bailey Rogers for South Carolina and Jacob Brunsman for Missouri on the opening leg. They will still stay in their lanes until they get through the second turn and then break for the pole.
With the exception of just a couple of teams, all of your fast times in the 4x4 come from the SEC championships. South Carolina has run 3:07 this year. Missouri doesn't look like they've really put together their fastest team. They come in with a 3:16 seed time. I fully expect them to go faster today.
Okay, so was that a false start or what was that? All right, they're coming in, and Rogers will hand off to Edward Richardson, and Brunsman will hand off to Nilo Clark.
Doesn't take long for Richardson to create a little bit of separation for himself. Like the way he pushes out, nice and aggressive.
This is easier to manage outdoors because there's more lanes on the track. It's a 2-section situation, and oftentimes that can be cut down as well. But there's such limited lanes here, and those inside 2 or 3 lanes are so tight. The most you can really accommodate is 4 teams at one time for a 4x4. So Richardson will hand off to Jackson Junkins, and Clark will hand off to Christopher Conrad. South Carolina in the lead, but Missouri certainly holding their own and should improve greatly on their season time. I had the pleasure of running this a few times in college. I trained with the quarter monitors a lot with my running workouts. So South Carolina, Junkins handing off to William Spencer Jr. and Christopher Conrad handing off to Blake Hayes.
What kind of split time were you able to lay down, Dwayne?
Yeah, my best split time was 48.8.
Wow, outstanding.
And I ran 49.2 open, which was okay for a slow high jumper. But it was good team building, and they saw that I was out there suffering with them, and that was a good thing.
Was it something you looked forward to, or did you
I did.
sweat it?
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I really did. But I made them let me anchor, of course.
Give me the lead, please.
Yeah, you know, big lead. All right, South Carolina's going to win this first section. And they are going to not improve on their season best through 8:95, but I would think Missouri definitely has improved on their season best. They came in at 3:16.75. They just ran 3:13.67. Neither of those times is going to score any points. But there are only 9 teams in the race, so actually one of those times will score points. If everybody else, all other teams compete and no one's disqualified, South Carolina will score a point. So South Carolina's A team wins it over Missouri's A team.
In the men's triple jump, I think Kerry McLeod from Tennessee was tired of second. He was second in this event last year. He was second in the long jump, but this year he takes the title in the triple jump with a personal best. 56 feet 4 inches. He saved the best for last. The 6th round. All of the 3 top competitors here scheduled personal bests. It was an outstanding competition.
And there are the results. McLeod with the win. Christian Edwards of Alabama second. Sean Dixon Bodie of LSU finishing third. And so here are the standings with 1 event remaining. Arkansas has wrapped it up by points. The maximum in the 4x4 is 10, so they're well outside that. LSU made a great run at it with 93 in second place. Ole Miss third, Alabama fourth. That's likely to change once we've run this 4x400 relay. 2 more sections remaining. The collegiate record, ostensibly the world record, 3 flat 77 by an amazing quartet of SC Trojans 3 seasons ago. There is Arkansas out in lane 6. They are scheduled to run Jaden Bartholomew on leadoff, Jalen Brown second, James Milholden third, and then Reiko Schwartz will anchor. Alabama in 4, Florida in 5, Arkansas on the outside in 6. As always, they will stay in lanes from the gun through the first 2 full turns and then break for the pole on the finishing straightaway. Arkansas comes in with a season best time of 3:07.26. It's a very competitive race on paper with Florida at 3:06.86 and Alabama at 3:07.88. I would suspect that these teams are readier now than they were then. So expect those times to improve as Florida takes the early lead.
Well, Ryan Riley, who finished in 3rd place in that 400-meter final, almost just an hour of rest time here. He takes the leadoff duties for the Florida Gators.
It's Willie for Florida. Bartholomew for Arkansas. or Alabama, I should say, is in second place. That's Gabriel Serrano as they get ready to hand off. Florida hands off to Ian Davis. Alabama to Leander Forbes. And Arkansas to Jalen Brown.
First leg for Florida, 46-4.
Florida always competitive in these conference 4x4s. I'm surprised to see them in the second section rather than the third section. Just not having any luck eating into that lead of Ian Davis for Florida. Now starting to make a move late. Alabama's Forbes making up some room. Denzel Villaman for Florida, Joshua St. Clair for Alabama, and James Milholland for Arkansas.
46-18 there for Ian Davis.
And now it's a much tighter race between Florida in front and Alabama.
Leander Forbes gave Alabama a 45-second leg, which helped them close the gap just a little bit.
Milholland trying really hard to get Arkansas back in this. He's doing a fine job of it. He is closing hard. Look at Arkansas coming from way back. Now it's competitive. They almost all hand off evenly. Florida maintains the lead. Arkansas into second. No, Arkansas into the lead with Rayco Schwartz. Florida, this is Jacob Miley, and for Alabama, Champion Allison.
Champion Allison, 6th place in the 400. That 400-meter final. Let's see if he can close the gap here.
Rayco Schwartz took off awfully fast to get in that lead in that first turn. Now here comes Champion Allison, passing on the turn. Got a head of steam. Schwartz probably doesn't know that he's coming. And Champion Allison wins it for Alabama. What a great race. 3:04.88, a significant improvement. 3 full seconds on their season best. They just raced themselves right into NCAA contention in 2 weeks. Corrected to 3:04.90, but still just short of a 3-second improvement over their season best. Conference championship will do that to you.
Well, here's the final exchange as Alabama comes out last in that third exchange. But what I love about what Champion Allison did is he was patient. He didn't try to get it all back at once. He just bided his time, but he moved to the outside lane, and so he was able to keep his momentum going forward. No stutter steps, no stammers. He just goes around on the outside and runs a fantastic anchor leg.
For their effort, Arkansas also improved on their season best by more than 2 seconds. And Florida by 0.8 of a second. So championship racing brings the best out in everybody. Alabama 3:04.90 for the time to beat for this final section. And this final section features the University of Georgia out of lane 3, Texas A&M out of lane 4, Kentucky in 5, Tennessee on the outside in 6. And these are the teams with the 4 best times in the conference coming into this championship. And there's Matthew Bowling for Georgia. They're loading it up.
And believe it or not, Dwight, Georgia has never won an SEC indoor 4x400 meter championship. But when you're in the conference with Texas A&M and Florida, that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew Bowling, only 1 open 400 meters in this indoor season, put him on the national list. So on the national list in the open 60, 200, 400, and now a real solid long jumper over 8 meters for the first time this season. But he's that Swiss Army sprinter that every college team wishes they had. Long speed, short speed, even give you both 2 legs on a couple of relays outdoors.
They will start in lane 3, so it's going to be a little tighter for Bowling in those first 2 turns. Texas A&M in 4 will start Brandon Miller. Kentucky will start Jacob Smith. And Tennessee on the outside starts with Sebastian Cooper. 3:04.90, the time to beat, established by Alabama. From the inside, Georgia, A&M, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And Bowling has already made up the stagger on Texas A&M. And Bowling gets the pole for the Bulldogs.
Mid 21 second there at the 200-meter mark.
So Georgia, Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Tennessee. And Bowling will pass off first for his team to Caleb Kavanaugh. Kentucky passes to Lance Lang. Georgia, A&M to Bryce Dedman, and Tennessee to Christopher Bailey.
45-18, excuse me, for Matthew Bowling.
Strong opening leg, especially out of lane 3. I expect Bryce Dedman to close a lot of that gap in the next 50 meters. Here comes Kentucky. They will pass off even with Georgia. Kenroy Williams for the Wildcats. Amajuwa Etiwi for A&M. Delano Dunkley for Georgia. And Emmanuel Bynum for Tennessee.
Lance Lang just dropped a 44.89, Dwight, on his relay leg. Not bad for a 200-meter runner.
That's why Kentucky has the best time in the conference coming into this meet. Now Tennessee making a move. Emmanuel Bynum running a lot of extra distance, trying to take the lead. And Bynum does so. Now it's Tennessee, Kentucky, A&M, and Georgia. And the fortunes have changed. Tennessee hands off to Jonathan Secours. Kentucky to Dwight St. Hilaire. A&M, Alon Clay, and Elijah Godwin for Georgia. And look at Godwin.
That third leg for Tennessee, 45-38.
Tennessee nicely in command at the bell. Can anybody catch Jonathan Secours?
That is a big gap.
It's a big gap with only a little over 100 meters to go. Elijah Godwin now dropping into second. But does he have enough gas? And enough real estate? Not enough real estate, that's for sure. Tennessee's going to win it. 3:04.06, that's going to win it and score the 10 points for the Volunteers. Kentucky second at 3:04.67. Georgia 3:04.72. So the top 3 beat the time posted by Alabama. They will end up with the 4th place points. That was a great race. A lot of lead changes.
This is the sophomore Emmanuel Bynum. Just fearless out there. He ran almost the entire race, his entire leg in the second lane until the very end, but he was the biggest difference maker. And then it was Jonas Secours. He just had to hold on for a Tennessee victory.
Tennessee establishes the #1 time in the country, but 4 SEC teams under 3:05.
Winning the mile, the 3K comes through. Bama, LSU put a nice little scare in it, but there is Arkansas on top with 116 points, back-to-back championships for Coach Chris Bucknam's team. Now, because of the COVID protocols, a little different trophy presentation than we're used to. Luckily, the Hogs know how to do this. They've won 24 SEC conference titles. This is the ninth one for Coach Chris Bucknam, and to present the trophy and the awards, we go down to the commissioner of the Southeast Conference, Greg Sankey.
Thanks, John. It's a privilege to be here, and I want to say thank you to every student athlete who worked so hard to get through an indoor season, stay healthy, and be here today. It's my first duty and honor to present the Cliff Harper Trophy to the High Points Individual Award winner, Javon Harrison from LSU. Javon, let's get your trophy.
Oh, good. I can go home?
No interviews? Yeah.
Javon? No, you got me. Don't run off just yet. I know you worked really hard for about an hour and a half yesterday. If you could just describe the performance and how hard it is to go ahead the high jump and then scoot right over and have to compete in the long jump.
It was very difficult. I had not as much time as I would have liked to recover between high jump and long jump, but luckily for me, it wasn't that long of a high jump competition, so I was able to get treatment and then go out there and do what I need to do for long jump.
You got 2 weeks, but how anxious are you to actually have a chance now to go back and defend your NCAA titles?
I'm going to use these 2 weeks to basically iron out the little things that I need to be better, and then I look forward to competing at Nationals in 2 weeks.
Javon Harrison, back to Baton Rouge with a couple of trophies. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now we go back down to Commissioner Greg Sankey to present the team trophy.
Thanks again, John. We're getting good at this. It's been a while, Chris, but
Thanks.
good to be back here. And we want to say thank you to the University of Arkansas, to Hunter Yurachek, and the staff. We had to do it different this year, but different still makes it special. And that means it's my privilege to present the 2021 SEC Men's Indoor Track and Field Championship to the University of Arkansas Razorbacks. Gentlemen, that is your trophy. I'm going to let you get it without me.
Woo!
Dwight, I think you hit on this at several points during the last 2 days with these guys, and that what elevates this meet every year to such great performances individually is the team competition.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. High school and college, it's about the team until you've scored your points, and then you go on to the individual glory and performance that you train for. But there's something very special. I was very lucky as a freshman to be a part of a national championship team at UCLA, and it's one of my fondest memories of the sport.
Okay.
Got Coach Chris Bucknam with us. Coach, you always tell me this is a meat grinder,
Yes,
but
it is.
you seem to come through it just fine. Where do you want to hit the highlights on this thing for your team?
We had 27 athletes compete. 24 of them scored.
Jeez.
Our goal was to win a ring. That's what our goal was to do, and get on TV with you. So it was just a great performance by our guys. And again, we put it together. Our coaches, Doug Case and Mario Satania, did a phenomenal job across the board. 24 out of 27 people scoring. That's a great team victory.
Is this a hard meet to win under the best of circumstances? What's it like to win this under such trying circumstances?
Well, I'll tell you, these guys have worked hard all year. This has been a grind, not just this weekend, but since we got together back in August. I want to thank Commissioner Sankey for allowing us to compete and doing everything that you can to get our athletes out here. All these athletes, look at the performances across the board by all the schools, and to be able to come out on top. It's just a sweet victory. I'm so proud of these guys and my coaches.
Coach, congratulations. Since they can't have fans in the building, as I sign off, I'm going to have you give them a nice, big, loud WPS so they can hear you outside.
We'll do that. Big Surrey! Big Surrey!
So as they call the Hogs, we say goodbye until 5:30 local, 6:30 Eastern. We are back with the women's final sessions here on ESPN and the SEC Network. The Arkansas Razorbacks, conference champs in the SEC for the 24th time. For Dwight Stones, Dan O'Brien, I'm John Anderson. Thanks for watching World Class Track and Field here on ESPN.